Time is 9:06. My name is Glenn Woods. Sitting across at a very safe distance is Nick Lerton. Lady Alex is downstairs, far away from us, so there's a lot of social distancing for you. Tried our best during the course of this morning's special presentation, the town hall version of the morning program, to cover as much of the state as we can. There's no way to get into everybody. That's why we were just out at Fremont County. Now we have a list of mayors and city managers for you. So I'm going to start with the city of Laramie, and Jamie Jordan is on the phone with us. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, good morning. It's actually Janine.
Janine, I'm sorry.
Good to be here.
Yeah. So if you're a city manager, as soon as all of this started, I would bet your job suddenly changed.
Boy, I think that's an accurate statement. We've been working on our pandemic response plan, or we invoked it, I should say, a number of weeks ago, probably 4 weeks ago. And so it's consumed a tremendous amount of time, as I'm sure it has for everybody else around the state.
Okay, so let's talk about services that the city still provides and services that you cannot provide at this time.
Really, we are still providing all of our services in Laramie. We've transferred to remote platforms for many of the services. At this point, the only services that we're not directly providing are related to our recreation programs and our recreation center, our ice and event center. And we've also temporarily closed some of our outdoor facilities where they're fenced in and they force people into large grouping.
Sure. Now, when I go ahead and pay my bills, I have no problem paying my bills online. But I know some people, though, still like to do it old school. They still like to write that check. They like to drop it off somewhere. How are you handling that?
Well, we've had a drop-off box at City Hall for many years, so we're just really closing the buildings to walk up customer traffic and forcing everyone to use that remote platform. Folks that want to write the check are dropping them in the drop box, and then we're responding accordingly to let them know that it was received through telephone and other remote means. So it's working pretty well, but you're right. There are some of us who like to write checks, but we're trying to accommodate those folks as well in a social distancing kind of way.
Janine, I wanted to ask you, and thanks for being with us this morning, I wanted to ask you from more of a personal perspective rather than city manager necessarily, what's your perception of how folks in Laramie are practicing these social distancing guidelines, some of this hygiene that has been encouraged? Do you feel like folks are taking it upon themselves to take it seriously?
I'll tell you, I do. I'm really proud of our community. We've had only about, 45 tests done in Albany County and only one positive. So our testing has been fairly low. But I think our community is certainly cognizant and aware of the fact that this virus is in our community, probably in ways that the tests don't actually capture. We've seen, for instance, when it comes to the business closures that were ordered by the state health officer, we've seen pretty much across-the-board compliance. We had a couple of complaints submitted by residents. When we followed up on those, they were unfounded effectively. So I think our business community and our residents as individuals are just doing a great job honoring this and really trying to protect the community as a whole by doing the right thing and staying home.
Well, that's a good thing. I bet it looks kind of like a ghost town there right now.
It really does. With the university students, many of them are staying away with the university classes going to an online platform. Of course, our school district is closed, as are many around the state, and it does look like a ghost town. It's really notable and disconcerting, frankly, but the right thing to do.
Janine, I wanted to ask, in terms of the resources you have within the city to combat the spread of this virus and keep folks in Laramie safe, is there something else you're looking for from the state or the feds? Do you feel like you have everything you need? How is that going?
I feel like at this point we're well supported. I think like we hear from other parts of the country and the state, we'd like to have more testing being conducted. We meet we meet daily with our county health officer and other key agencies, hospital, school district, et cetera. And that's been really the pervasive, concern that's come through that group of folks is that we just wish we had more testing available. But other than that, I think we're doing well so far. We're prepared if we get a rash of cases here in as much as we can be, and have just felt well supported, certainly at the state level and through our county.
And one more question for you. Having lived there for a number of years myself, I understand how big that town and gown relationship is. The University of Wyoming is a huge part of Laramie, and not just the business and the economics, but the community really. And with all that having been moved online and remote essentially, what's the impact there?
Well, like I said, it's notable in terms of the number of people and cars that just aren't out and about. Of course, we want folks to stay home. But I will say that, there's concern in the community. Our student population is just such a core part of Wyoming, of the Laramie community. And not having those students here would have a serious impact on our businesses, even if the businesses weren't closed by state public health order at this point in time. So
Sure.
I don't know how deep that impact will be, but I suspect it will be deep in the private business community, and also for the university and for the city and for the county and everybody. So we'll wait and see, but it certainly doesn't bode well for revenues and fiscal outlook going forward.
And that's the Laramie County City Manager. But let's go
That's
north.
the City of Laramie City
Manager. City of Laramie.
Thank you, Janine.
Got to get those straight, because there's the city, then there's the mountain of, and then there's the county of, and it all gets to be a blur after a while. Let's go north. I'm going to go to Casper to talk to the City Manager, Courtney Napier, there, because I've heard, while we did just hear from the City of Laramie that she thinks they're doing pretty well at just keeping away from each other. Everybody's spread out, keep a distance. But, Mr. Napier, I've understood in a couple of reports that I've heard that maybe not so much in Casper. Is there a bit of a problem?
Well, I don't know if there's a problem necessarily, but more so the health officer mentioned in one of our phone calls recently that he was concerned he's seeing too much congregation going on. Folks are congregating and having play dates and so on at some of the playgrounds, and that is enough for him to be concerned that if we can't improve upon that, we might need to go to other extremes as it relates to enforcing some distancing and so on. And so his comments brought us some concern, and we did put the word out that we need to work on it a little bit more effectively, I suppose.
And Mr. Napier, he said that Friday. It's been a couple days. I assume you guys have been in contact. Does it look a couple days since that is more likely?
Well, I think if it's going to happen, it'll happen at the bequest of either the health officer whom you had on earlier or the governor. And so we're kind of following that lead, waiting to see. We're in routine contact, much like Laramie is, with our health officer, getting his feedback, getting data and giving data. And if it does happen, and he does request greater, more stringent policies and protocols, we'll be ready, and we will know about it, and our public will be aware as well.
Well, and we talked about this, a statewide order of that type, the potential for that with the governor earlier, and his stance is, look, it's Wyoming. We all should be able to take care of this and act like adults, and if somebody says, hey, don't do this, there's a deadly virus going around, it seems like everybody should be able to take that lead and not go places or wash their hands or all these things. So seems to me like this simple way for Casper to avoid a stay-at-home order is to do all of those things without having to be told.
I would agree, and I certainly think that's what Wyoming people appreciate, is being able to sort of take those kinds of protocols and internalize them and make them work and everything else. And I do think, for the most part, that is happening in our community. Casper is one of those towns, much like every Wyoming town. It's hard to have our rights curtailed, if you will, as it relates to moving around and doing what we want to do and so on. But I firmly believe that as a community, we're getting better. We're working our way into this new norm, if you will, and we'll get ahead of it.
So from the city manager of Casper, Wyoming, let's head over to the mayor of the capital of Wyoming. Marion Orr is on the phone with us. Marion, thanks for joining us today. And maybe I'll go ahead and hit on again, see if she's still there, or did I lose the call? Marion, are you there? Okay. might have lost Marion Orr on that, so if she wants to go ahead and try to call back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And while we're waiting for that, I just want to make one point, Glenn. I'm in a bunch of these different Facebook groups, Living in Casper, Rants and Raves, or Rumor Mill, or whatever the heck the name of the group is. Recently, and I think this was probably early last week, I've seen a couple of posts from folks like, well, hey, the government shouldn't be allowed to tell us that we can't congregate or we can't leave our houses. How about we rally and demonstrate for our rights and stuff? There is some quote, and I'm sure it's from one of those old Greek guys or something, but it's something to the effect of, I have gained this by philosophy. I do without being asked what others only do for fear of the law, which goes to this whole social distancing and the hygiene stuff. Just do it. It's the smart thing to do. They wouldn't be it's not fun for the World Health Organization or the county to come and tell people, hey, maybe wash your hands for like the full 20 seconds like we should have all been doing. So
get Mayor Orr back on the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here. Marion, are you with us?
I can hear
Good.
you.
Okay.
Good morning,
good.
Mayor.
So we
Fantastic. Good morning.
We had just heard from Carter Napier about the problems that they have. And there's been a few problems where kids have gone on play dates, apparently, at some of the parks in Casper, Wyoming. You're one of those who have been a little more outspoken about maybe we need to take this a step further. So are you having problems in Cheyenne, Wyoming, or is Cheyenne cooperating?
Well, Cheyenne, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Okay.
Our issue is a bit different in that, with us being on I-25 and I-80 and with our neighbors, in Colorado being, shut in, we've had some concern about, folks coming, just a few miles over the way and congregating here. And our community is actually doing a really kind of great job of self-policing via social media and, kind of citizen shaming, if you will. And so what the good thing that's been going on is that our crime has reduced something like 24% from this time last year. So we're getting less calls for service. And so what we're doing is we're having patrols just kind of, check out our parks. There have been reports of, folks congregating in large private, parking lots and, just kind of trying to break that stuff up and get people separated.
Are you showing up at work or are you working from home?
I'm primarily working from home. I go into the office every day just to kind of, feel like I'm going into the office. But we, much like Janine said, we really prepared for this. We had a plan. Should something like this happen, we didn't expect it to be a pandemic virus. We thought more of flood or tornado or something else. But our IT department was just fantastic, and we can all remotely get access, all of the mainframe information that we have. We can still pay bills. We can do everything virtually.
Are you communicating with the other city managers and mayors out there?
We've been doing so with WHAM. I think it'd be really good, in the future. What I've been actually a part of is more kind of a national group of mayors. We had every Thursday we have a call-in, a Zoom conference. It's about 2 hours long with healthcare experts about, really how to work within our community and what it looks like. And that, when this ban, if you will, essentially is lifted, the importance of really not opening up the floodgates, but to get people gradually back together. For instance, youth sports. The youth are pretty, a pretty strong, healthy group. Some, maybe bringing back youth sports, but not having, large symphony performances.
Sure, we'll have to do things a little bit differently.
Yeah,
won't we?
and I want to pivot to a question Glenn had asked a minute ago. Mayor Orr, as I understand it, I think it was late last week, you had come out, or maybe it was over the weekend, you were in favor of a statewide stay-at-home order from the state, from the governor's office. We had the governor on earlier, and he says, well, I really hope we can avoid having to do that. Ideally, everybody will just understand this is the right thing to do and not have to be told. Is that still an order you would like to see come down from the state?
Well, I think whatever order is done, and I certainly, the governor's just done a fantastic job in leading our state through this. What we are seeing, though, in the state, Jackson recently imposed their own ordinance, and these patchwork ordinances, in my opinion, are really problematic, and so it's not that I'm saying we need to shut down, but any order should be statewide. Sure,
just for this consistency, especially considering
Correct.
You're dealing with the virus, and if one place isn't doing it, then they're spreading it there, and your local ordinance almost is less effective because of it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mayor Orr, thank you for coming on this morning. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
921, Wake Up Wyoming.